find a record of the verse circa 1600 AD, then this was no legend, it was history. Of course, we did not expect to find an inscription with the verse on it, but even a reference to the legend would be enough. We looked for the earliest record or reference to the three-stanza verse as we know it. To our surprise, no local records, not even folk tales or folk songs, make mention of the legend. And no evidence of the curse or Alamelama exists at Talakad or Malingi, except what an archaeologist reported almost 100 years ago. He was told that opposite the Virabhadra temple at Talakad there is a mantapa, a covered veranda. This is the spot where Alamelama was supposedly cremated. This is mentioned in a record of local history, preserved in a monastery in Koppala. We found only the deserted remains of the monastery. The monastery had moved to Talakad, but people were unaware of any association of the mantapa with Alamelama. Unable to trace any local reference to the curse, we began looking through British records. A breakthrough came in the shape of a work by Francis Buchanan, a British doctor, who was deputed by the British East India Company in 1800 AD to make a journey through southern India. Luck favoured us. During his long journey, Buchanan had stopped at Malingi. From here, he provides us with what may be the earliest explicit account of the situation at Talakad. He reported that he could see vast stretches of sandhills across the riverbank, and noted that only the tops of some temples at Talakad were visible. Buchanan then goes on to mention something else, something startling, that people believe Talakad is sand because of a curse. He wrote, "The natives attribute it to the prayers of a woman who drowned while crossing the river, and who, while dying, wished that it might be overwhelmed by sand. This is not the curse we know of." Could Buchanan not even have heard a mention of Alamelama? He makes a remark as if he knew that he must clear any doubts we may have 200 years later. Concerning its governors, before it became subject to the Rajas of Mysore, no tradition is current. We searched through other records that could support Buchanan's story. Lieutenant Colonel Mark Wilkes, political resident at the court of Mysore, makes no mention of the curse in his book, written at about the same time as Buchanan's journey. But a government report of 1895 was more definitive. It made clear that no authentic statement of Alamelama's curse is recorded during Raja Wodeyar's time, and there is no mention of this curse till the end of the 18th century. All this pointed out to a simple fact, that up to 1800, Alamelama's three-stanza verse did not exist. The legendary verse had taken root later, after 1800. But when? After sifting through several government records, we found mention of a traditionary curse in a state gazette, followed by what we think is the first explicit mention of it, in B.L. Rice's 1876 Gazetteer. He calls it the Curse of Talakad. We highlighted a possible interval when the legend could have taken root. After Buchanan's journey of 1800 and before Rice's gazetteer of 1876. But why this period? Something important must have happened. Talakad was not entirely buried under sand in 1600 AD. Archaeological findings and historical records tell us that the process may have begun in 1600 AD, but continued for more than 250 years. The ancient city might have faced its ultimate end only in the 19th century. To scientists, sand beaches on the inner bank of a meandering river are a common occurrence. At Talakad, the process began with the construction of the Madhav Mantri Dam. The dam, built around 1350 AD, across the river Kaveri, just a few kilometers upstream from Talakad, created lower water stages downstream, exposed river deposits, forced a change in the river's course, and created sand exposure on the Talakad bank of the river. With availability of water for irrigation, large-scale deforestation soon followed to make way for agricultural activities. With the tree cover destroyed, there was no barrier to the raging southwest monsoon winds, which began to carry sand from the riverbank. The only obstacles to these sandy winds were the towering temple structures at Talakad. Obstacles that in fact abetted the accumulation of sand over the city. Another scientific explanation for the phenomenon was given to us by Professor Krishnamurti.
Probably it is due to the occurrence of little ice age during the late medieval period. Good amount of water deposits in the form of ice in the polar and its adjacent regions. And this results in dry spell, receding in the water level of the sea, and also less rainfall in the tropical regions. Deposition of sand in the form of dunes is not only found in Talakad but also in its adjacent regions. For example, just 7 kilometers upstream Talakad, on the northern banks of river Kaveri, there is one site called Krishnapura. We excavated that site in 1998, and there also we got a huge stretch of sand rising to